WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and you're listening to The Common. Paula Moura, how are you?
I'm good, Dario. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah. Have to. You got a good one for us today. You are a WBUR climate and environment reporter, and you have a story for us that starts with some wetlands in Saugus, which is just north of Revere. So tell us about this area.
Yes, Dario. This is an area called Rumney Marsh, and it's very beautiful. You can see birch trees, dry plants, and some surface water in this wetland. And it's home to a number of different birds. Some of them are endangered. And because it's right on the ocean, when you have a high tide flood, the marsh helps absorb the water, and then it doesn't go and flood the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to the environment. And just to have an idea, Boston has lost about 81% of its salt marshes since 1777.
Mm-hmm.
And Massachusetts has lost about 41% of its salt marsh. So it's really important to protect that area. And when you're there, one thing that you can see also, it's the stacks of the incinerator and also the ash landfill of this company called Wind Waste.
Mm-hmm. Why would they put an incinerator in the middle of wetlands, protected wetlands at that?
Yeah, so this area was designated in 1988, and the incinerator and the landfill, they were built before that.
Mm-hmm.
So the incinerator was built when we didn't have many of the environmental protections we have today.
So it's a pretty big deal for this incinerator to be in the middle of these wetlands.
Yes, and I spoke to a resident who is also an activist. Her name is Jackie Mercurio, and she was telling me like all of these features of this marsh, and also that it would never be allowed to be built today in this protected land.
Essentially, it's a critical area of concern for the environment. The ash landfill sits inside this designated area, which we have lots of marshes in our Saugus River.
So what kind of impact does that have on the community? You know, what kind of concerns are there? I would imagine there's air quality and soil and water contamination. Did those things come up in your reporting?
Yes, exactly. So because the landfill is old, it doesn't have a double liner that would protect from leaching to the marsh. So yes, it has some protection, but it's not the one that's required today from landfills to have. So people are concerned about this. Like, what would it mean if there's an expansion? Will the landfill be able to hold this? And the other concern is we have an incinerator there, and it emits a lot of products from burning the trash. Mass DEP has a policy to measure these emissions on the stacks of the incinerator, and also has some inspections there from time to time, but it doesn't have any air monitors in Saugus. So people are very concerned about the air pollution the incinerator also has. But one thing which is very much on people's minds right now is that the landfill is set to reach capacity in the next 2.5 years and will have to close. But the company Wind Waste, they are pushing to stay for 20 more years there, dumping at this landfill.
Yeah, how do they plan to do that if they're about to reach capacity in the next few years and they're going to have to close, you know?
Yeah, so the regulation from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, the Mass DEP, is very clear. The landfill cannot expand over 50-foot height. So this was very clear. It was stated at a community meeting in the town last year, by the end of last year. But even with this very strict regulation, the company has approached the Saugus Board of Selectmen and proposed what is called a host community agreement to continue using the landfill for 20 more years.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more from Paula.
Did you kill Marlene Johnson?
I think you're one of the first people to have actually asked.
From WBUR and ZSP Media, this is Beyond All Repair, a new podcast about an unsolved murder that will leave you questioning everything.
Somebody should be in jail for murdering my sister.
A woman who's never been believed.
As long as they think I have done this, then they're not looking for who actually did this.
And that's what makes it a cold case.
No, it's a botched case.
And a search for the truth, once and for all.
Wow, it just gets more interesting.
Beyond All Repair. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
Be careful. You're digging in a place that's been very peaceful for a while.
Do it anyway. Dig.
And we're back. Now, what's the purpose of going to the Board of Selectmen to get their approval if the state forbids them from expanding?
So apparently this is WinWaste's strategy to gain support to continue operating the landfill. I spoke to one of the selectmen. Her name is Deborah Panetta, and she said something very interesting.
I believe the reason why WinWaste is doing this is because they want to go to the Mass DEP holding a piece of paper and say, see, look at this. The Saugus wants it.
Got it. Basically, she thinks that is the plan. Get town support, go to the state. What does the community think about all of this?
So the community is divided, especially inside the board, because some in the board want to move forward with the agreement and see what happens. So maybe if there's really any chance that the landfill can be expanded, the town could have some financial benefit because that's what they offered, some financial benefits. And then in this negotiation, they also, the town also requested some emission reductions, and the company said they would reduce slightly some of the emissions. But most people I spoke to, they are concerned because of the environmental impacts in the area, such an important area for the environment in Massachusetts. They also mentioned they are afraid of the consequences of the pollution. Some studies have been monitoring the air pollution in the nearby areas because it's not only Saugus. The incinerator is close to Revere and also close to Lynn, and the wind blows to Riverside in Revere, for example. I spoke to an activist, Loretta LaCentra, and she told me something very interesting.
So they have purchased what they call emission reduction credits, which allow them to be compliant on paper, but the air is dirtier that we breathe.
So these researchers went to Revere, and their data suggests that when the wind blows from the direction of the incinerator, the concentration of nitrogen oxides and particulate matter increases. And at times, the air pollution surpasses the healthy limits established by the Clean Air Act. This is something that people are very concerned because there are regulations for that, but the company right now emits more than the state limit. And nitrogen oxide, for example, it can cause asthma and other respiratory problems.
So the stakes are pretty high, basically. You know,
yes, exactly.
Talking about environmental impacts and, you know, impacts on communities and people and their health. What's the likelihood that WinWaste will be successful in getting their way?
So I spoke to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, and they said that the regulation is very clear, like they cannot expand over this limit when they reach capacity. It's the regulation because exactly it's inside the marsh. So unless the regulation or the laws are changed, it will be very hard to expand the landfill.
Got it. So what happens from here?
So right now, the vote on the host community agreement is on hold. I spoke to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Anthony Cogliano, and he said he's expecting to hear from Wind Waste in mid-March. So they would bring a proposal, an updated proposal explaining what would be the financial benefits to the town.
Mm-hmm.
And the activists are very hopeful that the new administration will just ignore the host community agreement and follow the regulations.
Understood. Well, Paula, thank you so much for talking to us today and bringing us this story.
Thank you so much, Dario.
That's WBUR climate and environment reporter Paula Moura. Also, a quick note, Wind Waste declined an interview with Paula, but they did share a statement. We continue to work on modifying the agreement, as directed by selectmen, and look forward to presenting them with a revised version in the near future. And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening to The Common. Make sure you hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok at WBUR The Common. Or you can send us an email at thecommon@wbur.org. I'm Darryl C. Murphy, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.